My house is haunted and I'm going to tell you about it. So 2 nights ago, I fall asleep in my master bedroom and my fiance goes to sleep in the guest bedroom. He hurt his knee. He's wearing a knee brace. His knee brace is very loud, so he's choosing to sleep in the guest bedroom to not wake me up in the middle of the night. We leave both of our doors open. Our dog decides to join my fiance and sleep with him. So it's about 20 minutes after we both get into bed. I stay up and I'm reading my book. I hear our dog jump down from the bed and run down the stairs. And I said to myself, oh crap, he has to go to the bathroom. I need to go let him outside. So I go walk into my fiance's bedroom to tell him, hey, I'm gonna go outside really quick to let our dog out. But our dog is in the bed with him. And I'm like, what the fuck? I said, he just got down and ran down the stairs right now. He's like, what? He's like, no, he didn't. And I'm like, no, I literally heard something run down the stairs. It sounded like a dog jumping off the bed, running down the stairs. So this was 2 nights ago. Yesterday, my fiance, myself, and our dog, we go on our normal dog walking route, which is just across the street, down the road. We live across the street from a church. I feel awful vibes from this church. Something tells me to stay away from it, okay? I never feel bad vibes about churches. I feel like churches are usually protected and whatever, okay? Something about this church doesn't feel good, okay? Anyways, we decide to change it up. We're like, let's go behind the church. No one is there. Let's walk around in the parking lot. Let's give the dog new little sniff spots to smell out. We've been behind this church a handful of times, maybe 10 times, okay? So we're behind the church. We're just kind of walking around the parking lot, letting him get some new smells in. And me and my fiance both, we stop and we see a patch of grass, okay? We've been behind the church plenty of times. We see a patch of grass that I have not seen before. And my fiance looks at me. He's like, that's a graveyard. I'm like, what? Okay, this is a very zoomed in photo. We're in the parking lot. Where this is there's a tree right here. This is very zoomed in, so it's tucked away. And I just found this very weird with the events happening in our house, plus I downloaded 2 ghost apps. And I'm pretty sure I caught some stuff on camera, but I don't know if I want to post it because I feel like these apps, they can be, you know what I mean? I believe in it, but there's definitely some crap going on.
So I have a story from when I was 17 years old that to this day is unsettling to me and scary, and I still don't even know what to make of it, to be honest. But when I was 17, my best friend at the time, Matt, wanted to go visit his brother in Mississippi. Matt's brother was stationed in Mississippi with the Navy, and he lived in this house with his girlfriend and this other guy who was a Navy SEAL. I never met him, but I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so the whole plan was to go to Mississippi, hang out with Matt's brother, and then we were gonna go to New Orleans and go hang out on Bourbon Street and do all that. The drive was about 2 or 3 hours for me and Matt. So while we're driving there, Matt decides to tell me then, hey, by the way, my brother's house is haunted, ha 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 ha. They've been having some problems, isn't that crazy? And I immediately got irritated that he didn't tell me that before. And if you guys don't know this about me, I grew up in a haunted house and my parents had to have priests come through and bless the home and all that. So there's history there for me, and it's just uncomfy to me. And I don't want to be around it. And that's it. So we end up getting there. I meet Matt's brother and his brother's girlfriend, and they're super cool, and we're all talking, hanging out. They're telling us about, what's been going on and all that stuff, and it was getting really bad for them. But they end up telling us a story about what happened in that house. And the story is really sad because it was a mother and her son, and the son was playing in the driveway and he ran into the street and got hit by a car and passed away. And the mother, being depressed, on the ceiling fan in the living room. Guess where me and Matt were sleeping? In the living room underneath the ceiling fan. And yeah, so first night, Matt decides to get really drunk and everyone else goes to sleep. It's midnight, Matt blacks out, and he's dead asleep. And I'm I'm laying on the floor in the living room next to Matt. We had blankets and pillows, and we had a big flat screen TV in front of us, and I put on something happy, and I put on the movie Jackass. And I'm sitting there and I'm slowly nodding off. And do you know when you're sitting at night in front of a TV screen and you can kind of see the light flashing over your eyelids? You can like see the screen almost. So yeah, I was seeing that. So as I'm falling asleep, I start feeling footsteps pressing into the carpet around my body. And I thought it was maybe Matt. So I turn and look, and Matt's sleeping. So it wasn't Matt. And the footsteps keep walking around my body, especially around my face. I feel the carpet pressing in around me. And my body goes into this state of fear. I was like frozen. I felt paralyzed, and I didn't know what to do. And next thing you know, the screen in front of me goes black and I can hear Jackass playing, but it's just black, and I feel a heavy presence standing over me, and it felt like there was somebody standing over me, which is so unsettling to think about. And I start praying. That's like the only thing I feel like I was able to do. I just started like praying, like, God, protect me, like put a veil over me. I don't want to see this. Like, please go away. I didn't know what to do, and I end up falling asleep. Don't know how, but I did. And yeah, we wake up. I told them what happened. They're like, oh yeah, that's, she walks through the hallway, she walks through the living room. And I was like, okay, that's creepy. So fast forward to the middle of the day. Matt's brother and his girlfriend, they go to work, and me and Matt are just hanging out at the house. We're in a good mood. We're not even thinking about anything, and we're sitting in the kitchen. So we're sitting in this round table in the back. So basically I'm sitting here and Matt is you. And behind me is a doorway, like a little bit further back behind me. And it goes to like the front door, and then the hallway down to the bedrooms, and then the living room. So me and Matt are eating boiled peanuts, talking, laughing. I have photos from this day, and we're in a great mood. And Matt looks right past me, and he goes, I'll name Matt's brother's girlfriend, Sarah. He goes, Sarah. And I'm like, Matt, Sarah's not here. And he goes, Sarah. And I was like, Matt, Sarah's not here. And then the door slams at the end of the hallway. And me and Matt spring up without saying a word to each other and haul ass out of that house. I've never ran so fast in my life, like genuinely. Like, we sat outside of that house until his brother and his brother's girlfriend came back. And we did not go back in until they came back, and we told them what happened. And they said, like, it's normal, it's been happening, and it's creepy. So that's pretty much all we experienced, at least that I can remember. And fast forward to what I heard is that Matt's brother and his girlfriend at that time, they ended up having to move out of that house. The Navy had to move homes for them because it got really aggressive, and whatever they were dealing with in there did not want them there. And that was not Sarah, and it was really unsettling for me. And to this day, I don't really know how to explain it, but I thought it was really creepy.
Okay, I'm going to try to do my best to talk about this quickly and also without getting too much of an adrenaline dump and shaking, because it's still to this day, when I remember the story, freaks me the hell out. I grew up in a very haunted house in Colorado. We found out it wasn't the house over time, it was the land. We actually did have a medium come and cleanse the house after my mom's first bout of cancer. Tons of stuff happened. I could literally tell story after story after story. We lived there for 30 years. It was bad enough that my dad actually did ask the realtor when he sold the house if he had to disclose to the new occupants that it was haunted. We found out over time, talking to other neighbors, they all had the same issues. It really was. It was the land this subdivision was built on. So the scariest thing, it was actually like a succession of things, but when we first moved in there, it was a 3-story walkout basement house built on a hillside, and I had the basement room as the oldest kid. And there was one night where I woke up, it sounded like people were banging on the doors. There was 2 entrances to my room. It sounded like they were running back and forth and trying to get in. I actually heard things in the playroom down there, like tumbling out of the cabinets and going all over the place. And when I finally worked up the courage, I turned on all the lights in my room, and one of the doors was a quick right and then left up the stairs to get up to the main level, turn around, and then go up again up to where my parents were sleeping. I was 12 or 13 at the time when this happened. I think it was about 13. So I hear all this happening. I suck up my strength to like go run. And as I start to open the door, somebody, wham, like hits the door, which made me fly back to my bed, pull up the covers. I didn't have a phone down there. Again, this is long before cell phones. So I had no phone, no way to call 911 or say somebody's broken into the house, nothing. So instead I took my boombox stereo and I turned the music up full volume. I was 2 floors below my parents' bedroom, and I thought, surely if I turn the music up all the way, they'll know something is wrong. It's about 3 a.m. My dad did wake up, felt like something was wrong, came downstairs, saw that all my lights were on and that my music was blaring, and couldn't wake me up. The playroom, not destroyed. There was nobody down there. Nobody had broken in. Everything was sealed shut. He was so freaked out, he moved me immediately the next day up to my youngest brother's room, had him stay with my other brother while they moved my bedroom upstairs, because my dad was like, I only woke up thinking something was wrong. He didn't hear the music until he opened the basement door, and he was like, if somebody actually broke in, we wouldn't hear what was going on. So I told you that story to tell you this story. So they moved me up. It's maybe 2 nights later. I am sleeping on my brother's bed, looking down. He was at the end of the hallway from the top stairs on the 3rd floor. And it was a direct line of sight to my parents' bedroom. And I was so freaked out about what had happened. I was sleeping with the door open so I could see to their bedroom and feel like, I was kind of safe enough to get to them if I needed them. I woke up in the middle of the night to a slamming sound coming from the basement. And it sounded like doors were slamming somewhere in the house. Then I heard what sounded like running heavy footsteps up the basement stairs. It sounded like the basement door was kicked open and that someone had run around on the hardwood floors to the base of the other stairs and had run up those stairs and then stopped. Now, I was not staring down the hallway when I heard this. I was kind of like looking around, and then I looked at the base of the stairs, and I'm going to show you what I saw. Okay, so imagine that this is the top flight of the stair. So there's a whole wall coming this way and the railing for the stairs. I literally saw something like coming up this way with its hands, and it was like a black shape just looking at me down the hallway like this through the bars. I took in a big, deep breath, and I think I called for my mom, and this thing shot off like a light up the stairs. So it takes off up the stairs and like on all fours starts zooming this dark shadow thing towards my brother's door. And the door I could almost touch from the bed. So I just shot out of bed and slammed the door shut. And I screamed bloody murder. I woke up the whole house. Nothing hit the door. Nothing else happened. But of course my dad took off out of bed and ran towards my brother's room. I was like, what the hell is going on? None of the doors were open. The basement door was locked. No one had broken in. And I, after that point, until we got me moved into my other room, slept with that door shut. There are so many things that happened in that house. Like I, for a long time, could not sleep with a mirror in the same room as me because of things I saw. There was an entity that several people saw that my family didn't talk about for a very long time until we kind of, once we had the medium in, people kind of figured out something weird was going on with our house. But I have tons of stories. And I actually, if that story sounds familiar, I shared it on last podcast on the left several years ago. And I remember seeing a bunch of comments of people saying like, there's no way that's true. People lie about this stuff all the time. I am telling you, on my life, my child's life, my family's lives, this shit happened, and it happened so often. Like, my mom would leave the house and call somebody from the front porch and say, I'm scared to be here alone. Everybody had something happen. Everybody. Like, it just was, it was a very active house. I could tell stories for hours.
Okay, so I'm just gonna come right out and say it. The creepiest thing ever, probably in the history of what has happened so far in my haunted house, officially happened last night. Officially. 100%. So far, nothing can top this one. So, my fiance and I were laying in bed, going to sleep. Great British Baking Show is obviously playing in the background. Nothing else can relax me more. And he's like, stop taking the covers. Stop pulling the covers off me. Mind you, I'm pretty much asleep. I am not moving. I am a log at this point. So I scooch my boot all the way to the other side of the bed, so where we are not touching. There is no way he can tell me that I'm pulling the covers off of him. So he turns the TV off. We are now falling asleep in silence, and out of nowhere, literally nowhere, at the same exact time, we both hear, Mom, Mom. Excuse me, I am not a mother. We both heard it. We both heard it, and it was coming from the bottom, like where your feet are, like that part of the bed. So I'm literally at a loss for words. The only thing I do know is that around the 1920s, 1930s, there was a fire in this home, in my house, that a family was in, and I've read that they did not make it out. So, like, I don't get it.
I wanted to preface the story by saying that I grew up with a very spiritual mom. My mom has always believed in ghosts, spirits, paranormal things. In the past, she has used a board. I'm too scared to say these words, by the way. Well, I grew up with my mom taking me to psychics all my life. My mom, when I was a child, was told by several people that I had a gift, that I was born with a gift to see and feel beyond this realm. Essentially, that I had a clairvoyance and a sensitivity to energies. Mind you, this is a gift that I would gladly like to return. So anyway, needless to say that I have had several experiences from when I was a child, and so has my mom. Funny enough, all the women in my mom's side of the family, my younger sister, my 4 aunts, and my mom all have had some kind of experience of their own. Anyway, we lived in apartments growing up all my life. We would move from apartment to apartment several times, and the place that a lot of the activity happened at, we happened to live at for maybe 4 to 5 years. During this time period, I think I was between 13 to 16. When we first moved into this apartment, the neighbors that we had a few doors down that were already living there told us that there was a story of a little girl's presence that basically haunted the apartment complex. There was a pool in the back that was covered. It was filled with dirt or concrete, and the story was that a little girl drowned there. And I just also want to mention that these were not nice apartments. These were very old apartments, and yeah. Oh, another important thing to note is that I had an aunt that lived right next door. There was my apartment and she lived right next door. And I had a little cousin who at the time was around 6 years old. He had an imaginary friend who was a little girl whose name I shall not say because I don't want to bring that energy back. For some reason, most of the activity of the things that happened was in my mom's room. My room was directly across from my mom's room. There was a hallway in between, but they faced each other directly. There was a bathroom. This was upstairs, so there was a bathroom in between the 2 bedrooms, and that was the only bathroom upstairs. The other bathroom was downstairs. So this is an important part of the story. I was always terrified of my mom's room because at this point I had already had other experiences that centered around her room. For example, just a side story, there was this one time where I was taking care of my sister, and all of my family, all of my aunts were at my aunt's house next door. It was a party. It was maybe Thanksgiving or my aunt's birthday, which is also November, and they were all celebrating. And so because my sister was tired, I was tired, I brought her back to the apartment and put her to bed in my mom's room. And when I was looking in the mirror to take off my makeup or just look at myself, I noticed my shadow behind me moved. And so I told myself, okay, well, obviously it's my shadow, so if I move, it's gonna move. And something about it just scared me. Something about seeing the shadow like cast behind me scared me. I stopped just to see what would happen, and then the shadow grew taller and started to move across the room, and I'm starting to get chills. That's only one of the things that happened. There were also several things that happened to my mom in her own room. Anyway, that's not the story I'm telling, at least right now. Home alone very, very often because my mom worked all the time, and I didn't have a car at this time. I was maybe around 15, maybe 16, and I did have friends that had cars, but I did not have a car. So oftentimes I would lock myself in my room. At this stage, I was already very afraid of being alone. I was terrified of the dark, and I was terrified of ever leaving my room. I was terrified of my mom's room. I wouldn't leave my room just to avoid seeing my mom's room that was across the hall. So this means there was often times where I wouldn't eat and I wouldn't go to the restroom. And there was this one time where I just happened to be alone for a really long time. It got to the point where I had to go to the restroom. Part of the deal when I was alone, because my mom already knew how afraid I was to be there, was that she would always close her door, her bedroom door, when she left and turn off the light. If she didn't do this when she left, then I would muster up the courage to run across the hall, turn off her light and close the door, just because I didn't want to see any activity underneath the door. Like, I didn't want to see any light or shadow activity under her door. And this is really, really important. When I tell you I was paranoid about this, I was adamant about this, and I always, if I was alone, I made sure the door was closed and I think you know where this is going. This time that I was alone and I was in my room for majority of the day, it got to the point where I needed to leave the room and I needed to go to the restroom. And I just remember that I had peeked out of my bedroom before, trying to get the courage to go to make sure her door was closed, her light was off. It was. And so went back in my room, grabbed my phone, was talking myself up to go to the restroom. I just didn't want to see her room. And of course, when I go back out to walk to the restroom, I freeze because I look across and her light is on. Immediately, I retreat back to my room. I start talking to myself, telling myself, maybe I mistook what I saw. But I knew in my gut, and I knew because I checked, that the light had been turned off, and it had been off, and now it is on. I don't know how much time passed, at least another hour, that I just hid in my room. Instead of fight or flight, I froze. I just froze in place, and I was too scared to move. I started praying. I had a rosary I always had on me and just started praying. Well, eventually, because I knew my mom wasn't going to be home, nobody was going to be home. My aunt worked with my mom at the time, and so nobody was home next door. I knew that I was going to be alone for a few more hours. I eventually mustered up the courage again to, at the very least, I wanted to confirm that what I saw was true, and if somehow I was able to run to the restroom and then just come back, get that done. But then when I open my door, I now see her doors slightly open. The light is still on and her door is slightly open. With this, I knew that I knew that something was happening. So once again, retreat back to my room. At this stage, I'm freaking out. Like, even talking about this, it freaks me out. Eventually, fast forwarding through the time, it felt like hours were passing. So the rooms were across from each other and the staircase was next to my room. So I thought maybe if I just am able to turn the corner and run down the stairs and leave the apartment, that's what I'll do. I'm just too scared to be here. And so I open the door again, and now her light is off again and the door is still open. And I just see a shadow, a short shadow, standing in the crack of the door. I freeze. I freeze. when I say I still get chills talking about this. I tried to tell myself maybe it's something hanging on the door, maybe it's this and that. I had checked after my mom was finally home. Nothing was hanging on the door, and nothing is in the view of the door. Like, you can't see anything from her bedroom from the view of the door. I don't know what that was, but I do. At this stage, I can't be at the apartment anymore. I'm frozen in fear, and I can't even get myself to run down the stairs. I go back in my room and I call a friend of mine who had a car, and I tell her, you need to come pick me up. I'm scared and I can't be here. We had a bad habit of always leaving our door unlocked because my aunt was next door, and just in case they were in and out of our apartment all the time, our door was always unlocked. So I tell my friend, the door's unlocked, come get me, go straight up to my room, come get me. So being a good friend, she comes, she goes up the stairs, I'm ready to go. First thing she says is, where did your sister go? Grab your sister. And I said, no, I'm alone. I'm not taking care of her today because I babysat very often. We can just go. Then she tells me the words that have haunted me to this day. She says, but I just heard her laughing. I heard her laughing while I was going up the stairs. Once again, this isn't the first thing and it's not the last thing that happened in that apartment. That apartment turned my stern, logical stepdad into a believer of things beyond explanation.
This is true, and this happened to me. So you're gonna need a little bit of context before I jump right into the story. My grandparents on my mother's side live out in the country in Oklahoma. When I was younger, we would go out there and visit them frequently, at least once a year. This particular time, we're going to visit them. I can't remember exactly how old I was. I want to say I was like 10, somewhere between the ages of like 8 and 11. So we go up there for a small family, like close family reunion type of thing. I should also mention that this house is old. If that wasn't already obvious, this house is old. It's old as my grandparents. It's older than them. So at this reunion, everyone's outside. They're grilling, barbecuing, sitting, chit-chatting, talking, whatever. It was starting to get a little bit chilly, so I was like, I'm gonna go inside and get a jacket and I'll be right back. So I run inside. Mind you, nobody else is inside the house. Everybody's outside getting their barbecue on, okay? I run inside, up the stairs to my room to grab a jacket. In this room, there's the closet, and then next to the closet right here is a little door for a crawl space. I grab my jacket, I turn around. The crawl space is open. The door is cracked open. I'm like, oh, okay, let me just go and close that really quick. I go over, I open it a little bit because I'm like, what's in there? Not expecting there to be anything in there. I open it, and there's a staircase. A long staircase going up. So what does 10-year-old me do? I go up the staircase. Something was just speaking to me, telling me that this door was open for a reason and that I'm supposed to go up in here. So I get to the top, there's another door. I open the door into this grand hallway. It's like white and gold marble columns, but it's a long hallway. And there's a bunch of doors going down, and then another door at the very end. Immediately, I'm like, what is this? Where am I? And a little freaked out, obviously. Something was calling me to go to the door at the very end of the hallway. Forget all the other doors, go to the one at the end of the hallway. So I start walking down this very long hallway. And all of these doors are shut, right? And then I feel like something's watching me. I look and I see further down the hallway, one of these doors on the left side, an old woman, a very creepy old woman, is peeking her head out of the door and watching me. And then I would see her pop out of a different door and be looking at me, and then a different door and then be looking at me as I kept progressing down the hallway. Finally, I reached the end of the hallway to the door at the end, and I was so compelled to open it. So I opened it, and I left the door open. When I entered the room, I left the door open, okay? And it's a complete change of environment. The hallway was white and gold marble columns, like very clean, very, I don't know, elegant. Walk into this room, it's like your basic old dusty attic. Boxes, spider webs, it's dark, creaky wood. And there's a circular window across from me at the other end of the room.
the same exact circular window that you can see from the front yard where everyone is outside. So I walk over, I look out the window, and I can see everybody down there, but it's like there's a weird filter over it, where it's in like black and white, and they're all skeletons. Everyone's there, moving around like normal, grilling, laughing, playing, but they're skeletons. And as I'm registering this, processing it, the door behind me slams shut, and I turn around, and the creepy old lady is standing behind one of those piles of boxes, looking at me with the most sinister, it was the most evil I've felt in my life. I ran faster than I've ever ran in my entire life. Out of that room, back down the hall. I did not look back a single time. Back out the original door, back down the staircase, and I shut the crawl space door behind me. I grabbed my jacket off of the bed where I had set it before I went up there, and I put it on, walked downstairs and back outside like nothing happened. The next time that I come over to visit my grandparents, about a year later, I have not told my grandma this story. I've not told her anything. I come over, I go to sleep in this room. I'm already a little bit apprehensive about it because of the previous events. I step into the room and I see that the crawl space is now boarded and nailed shut with blankets over it as well. They boarded that up. And then just recently, a couple years ago, I actually told my grandma about this, and all she does is go, yeah. Goodbye.